see, I knew this would work.
Council member? I'd like to call to order this special meeting of the Albany City Council, Monday, March 16th, 2020. This is a special meeting, and will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Barnes?
Here.
Councilmember Moss is not here yet. Councilmember Nason?
Here.
Vice Mayor McQuaid?
Here.
And Mayor Pilch.
Here. This special meeting has one item of new business, a request by the Director of Emergency Services that the City Council adopt Resolution 2020-29, proclaiming the existence of a local emergency as a result of the spread of COVID-19, otherwise known as the novel coronavirus. Do we have a staff report?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. I'll keep it brief. I know that all of us are paying close attention to this issue throughout the last couple of weeks here. As you all are well aware, this is a pandemic, and as such, many local cities are calling a state of emergency. This is for a couple of reasons. One is to ensure that as we respond and activate our Emergency Operations Center, we are available to apply for funding and support from the county and state, depending on the nature of issues that may come to light here in Albany. And as you know, we're planning for everything, and we're doing a really good job of doing that, but we want to make sure that we have our resources in line whenever they may become of need. You will see in the resolution, it also authorizes the Director of Emergency Services as the city manager to carry forth the operations of the EOC as warranted. And at this time, again, many cities around us are doing this exact same thing, and it's the appropriate thing for us to do as a council and a city.
And I'll note that I believe the county called the state of public health emergency, and the state also called the state of emergency, or at least public health emergency.
That's right.
And are there any questions from the council?
Is this an appropriate time to ask about Albany's response to the situation?
I was wondering if perhaps we might leave that to the city manager's report in the regular meeting. Do you think everyone think that would be okay? Or?
Sure.
Okay. Although if there's questions about, I have some questions about what authority this might grant us. So did you
I sort of
as
had
well?
similar questions, so I'm not sure where they go is what I'm trying to say. Maybe you should ask your questions, and I could ask my questions, and then we could find out where they go.
Sure. Well, I guess what came to my mind is we received some heartbreaking correspondence about people who are affected by the upcoming order, the county order to shelter in place, and already the situation where many businesses have had to close and people are losing income. Does this order give us any emergency authority to perhaps pass orders that prevent rent increases or prevent companies from what's the word I'm looking for? What's that?
Evictions?
Well, evictions and or people, companies cutting people off for services because of unpaid bills, things like that.
That is something the council consider as a next step, but this actual resolution wouldn't allow that right now. So you could take those next steps at future
Right.
meetings.
No, I understand that. I understand the order, but I'm wondering exactly what powers this gives us to enact such orders or ordinances.
I think it assists with defensibility of those next steps that you're talking about, whether it be preventing evictions and whatnot, because it shows that we've already declared a local emergency. Obviously, we've got the county and the state and the national emergency, but it definitely helps to make the findings and help defend any potential future actions we take.
Okay, then perhaps the council might want to could the council weigh in now on perhaps future items they might want to see on a future agenda? Would that be appropriate to consider?
Maybe it might be best to take action on this item, and then if you'd like to talk about after this item, next
Okay,
steps.
after this item in the special meeting, that would be okay?
Exactly.
All right, great.
Mayor,
Any?
would it perhaps make sense, I mean, I'd like to hear what is already in the works before we start talking about what we'd like to agendize to do in addition to what the staff is already doing.
Already in the works in terms of what will come of the the declaration of the state of emergency?
No, in terms of response, how Albany is responding to the order that was issued today.
Okay, sure. I'm not sure we have too much time to go into that, but sure, let's talk about that with as much time as we have. But we also have the regular meeting where we can discuss that as well.
I was going to suggest perhaps, Nicole, in the next meeting, your city manager, that gets covered.
Yes,
That's what I thought. So with that, we might have public comment. Otherwise, I will.
We certainly can invite public comment if there's no more questions from the council. Seeing none at this time, public comment, please go ahead.
But just, you asked about other things that you had power to do in the face of this crisis. I know that other localities are passing eviction moratoriums right now as emergency ordinances. I personally know that Alameda County is working on that ordinance because I'm one of the people working on it. So I'd be happy to share whatever language that could help Albany write that ordinance as well.
Thank you very much for that. Any other public comment? I see no other public here. Bringing it back to the council. Are you okay, Councilmember Nason, with discussing more of the details in the regular meeting, or perhaps there's some particular questions you'd like to ask now?
I've got lots of questions, but they can all wait till the next meeting. That's
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll move to adopt resolution 2020-29.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Will you poll the council, please?
Councilmember Barnes? Councilmember Nason?
Yes.
Vice Mayor McQuaid?
Yes.
Mayor Pilch?
Yes. The
Motion
motion
carries.
carries. Yeah. Thank you very much. Any further comment on this item? If not, I guess we will take a 5-minute break until the beginning of the regular item.
I think you adjourned.
Meeting. I'm sorry?
Adjourn the meeting. It will start again.
Let's see, does it call for a formal adjournment? Yes, it does. Okay, I will adjourn this meeting of the special meeting of the City Council. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Albany City Council, Monday, March 16th. And I will ask you to stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will you do a roll call, please?
Councilmember Barnes?
Present.
Councilmember Moss?
Here.
Councilmember Nason?
Here.
Vice Mayor McQuay?
Here.
Mayor Pilch?
Here. We will skip over items 3 and 4. We have no ceremonial matters or action, and we had no closed session. I'll move on to the consent calendar. These items are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. We will not consider any of these items separately unless any of the council members or members of the public want to pull one of these items for discussion. Would anyone like to pull an item for discussion? Any member of the public like to pull an item for discussion? Seeing none.
I'll move the consent calendar.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Barnes?
Yes.
Councilmember Moss?
Yes.
Councilmember Nason?
Yes.
Vice Mayor McQuay?
Yes.
Mayor Pilch?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is good of the city public comment for persons wishing to address the city council on an item that is not on the agenda. Do we have any members of the public for good of the city?
Yes, we do.
Please come up.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here today. My name is Aaron Tiedemann. I'm here today as one of the core leaders of Voter Choice Albany. We are the group that we're a group of volunteers that has been gathering signatures to put ranked choice voting on the November ballot. I'm here to inform you that as of last week, we have suspended the campaign because of public health concerns. However, to focus on some more positive aspects here, we are excited to report that we gathered 600 signatures in our first month of signature gathering, and we were on track to obtain the 1,200 signatures we needed to put it on the November ballot. Of the people we actually spoke to, 7 of 10 voters, when given the chance, signed to put it on the ballot, and this demonstrates that voters in Albany overwhelmingly support placing this measure on the November ballot in front of the people. So, while unfortunately we've been forced to stop the campaign while it was getting into its highest amount of momentum, we want to ask you on behalf of our group to represent the constituents of Albany and put ranked choice voting on the ballot in November due to the unprecedented circumstances that have caused us to have to stop our efforts. Voters want the opportunity to vote on RCV. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other members of the public, I'll close good of the city and move on to the city manager report. Nicole.
Thank you, Mayor. I will provide you an update.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Yeah, you gave me a nice little signal there that I had forgotten my
After you.
mayor's statement.
Yes.
I would like to make the statement at this time concerning recent events. Just 2 weeks ago, I gave some information to an almost full council room at the last meeting about the then growing incidences of COVID-19 spread in the Bay Area. Already at that time, the situation was changing day to day, but now circumstances have accelerated even more. In our special meeting now, the city has declared a state of emergency. I feel for all those affected by the novel coronavirus COVID-19 global pandemic. These are extraordinary times and call for measures that most of us have probably not seen in our lifetimes. I certainly have not. Guidelines have been changing rapidly. Just today, the federal government is asking to limit gatherings of more than 10 people. Yesterday, the state government of California ordered that alcohol establishments close, restaurants curtail their businesses, and seniors shelter in place. Today, 6 Bay Area counties and Berkeley, who has its own health department, banded together to issue a shelter-in-place order starting at midnight tonight for everyone in the county. Non-essential activities and functions are being shut down. These city facilities will be mostly closed to the public, but city staff will be available by email and phone. This is not a complete lockdown. Venturing outside of your home for essentials, such as food, is allowed. There's an allowance for being outdoors for exercise as long as you observe social distances of 6 feet or more. People are simply being asked to limit contact as much as possible in order to stem the spread of the coronavirus. I know that many of you will want details and many have questions, and a number of you have written to me that you'll be watching this online or on cable TV. We'll try to answer some of those questions tonight, but we'll make sure that any and all information is available online on our website and provide you with email addresses and phone numbers to contact for more information. Work on the science of the coronavirus is ongoing and we learn more every day. However, there's consensus that social distancing will absolutely affect the outcome in a positive way. Authorities agree that the virus is here. Social distancing will allow us the ability to greatly reduce the impact to the public, slow the spread, and allow us to have the capacity to treat the cases of COVID-19 that will inevitably come. I implore you to heed the guidance from all healthcare officials and take seriously their instructions and requests. Together, we can shorten the lifespan of this pandemic and get back to business as usual as quickly as possible. I've heard from many of the small businesses in the city who are fearful and are already struggling. My heart goes out to them. The city has prepared a page on their website dedicated to resources for those small businesses. The county has a small business administration which can help, and that resource and others are now listed on our website on a special page. I've also heard from those who have at least temporarily lost their jobs to the virus. I will be asking city staff what power we have to temporarily stop rent increases and the like, and we've already discussed that a little bit. Other government entities, such as the state and the county, may be issuing similar orders in the days to come. I've asked the county to halt all evictions. No one should suffer more, even more, during these extraordinary times. Lives are upended, as many of us are asked to work from home, and children must stay home from school and be cared for by parents. Many of these parents may not be able to work from home. I ask that you consider your neighbors in this time and local businesses, and do what you can to help while staying within public health guidelines. It is my personal priority to make sure that the seniors and other vulnerable groups continue to receive services during this time, and I believe the city manager will be saying more about this in a little. Please stay safe and well. Nicole?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to walk you through our website first to show you one of the most important things to our community who are at home. Information is literally at your fingertips, and this is where we will continue to post information as soon as we receive it. As you know, we are receiving our information directly from Alameda County Public Health as the lead agency, providing direction to the city, and we are coordinating with them well and receiving information on an ongoing basis. Very helpful factual information, I might add, and the facts of this situation are really important to understand in balancing with the confusion and frustration that you can see when everything closes at the same time. I would really like to thank Dr. Frank Wells, our superintendent, as well, for taking such a great leadership role in coordinating with the city and the way that the schools were closed and the information that went out was very helpful, and it was a great partnership between the two agencies, which we are continuing. So as you see at the top of our banner here, this is our emergency alert, and it's very easy to click into that to get more information. Now here's where we'll add the build to this information on the current status. This is as of March 16th, so it, as you can see, is regularly updated. That's today. Also, what we've done to make this site more robust is find those specific groups that need additional help. The highest priority groups who are maybe the seniors, vulnerable populations, and also our local business community is really critical to support them at this time. So what we've done here is information that you see on a lot of websites about how to self-care, how to stay home, how to practice that social distancing, all the things that we've heard a number of times, but really you can go in here to dig deeper and figure out what that means for you and your families. Also, this webpage was updated today as well, which gives information specifically for our business community. And we are reaching out to the Solano Avenue Association as well as the Chamber of Commerce to help us distribute this information. And that is a critical partnership that we need to facilitate this information to our local business community. As the mayor stated, restaurants remain open with some precautions, but takeout is absolutely an option and something we strongly encourage to help those businesses stay afloat. I will go through an update of what we are doing internally as well as we prepare and have activated our EOC. Again, as you've heard numerous times, this is a very fluid situation, and the information changes almost hourly. This morning, we were planning for how to continue existing essential city services without a shelter in place. And as you all heard, by midday, there was a shelter in place, which is a significant impact on city resources. But what I can tell you is through our EOC, our primary duties at this point in time are to support our most vulnerable people, and that includes both non-sheltered and seniors and the chronically ill. And something that we have put in place immediately is a hotline for those individuals. So this is through our Albany Cares program, which is already in existence, but we've customized it for the here and now of this situation. The phone number is here, 524-9122. That connects you to the senior center, which is, again, a hotline for folks that may need immediate service. Clearly not emergency services, but help with meals, help with other human services or social services needs that they can't come door to door to receive that service at this point in time.
Is that answered live or is it a message?
Yes, it's answered live. It's a hotline. We're also, through our EOC, one of our critical roles, as you know, when we stand up an emergency operations center, is to support public safety departments. Our first responders, both in police and fire. They have a very difficult position right now, and they're working really well together to figure out how to adjust to the situation as it moves forward, figuring out what triage means, how to address 911 calls, and how to support our community as best as they can at these uncertain times. We are coordinating with other cities, non-government organizations, and faith-based groups as best as possible. In a public health crisis, it's very different for volunteers when the order is to keep your distance, stay sheltered. The need to help and contribute to a group process is not the standard that we're used to, and we're trying to figure out how we can help our volunteers help us. But again, it's something that we need to look at a bit further as we get more direction from public health. I talked about business support. The other critical piece to this is our public information. You all should have received an alert through our telephone line and text line today about the shelter in place. Those will continue as countywide issues are made available through that system. That's, again, just another resource on top of our website. I would encourage people to definitely utilize our website because we will link to the most fact-based websites that we have available to us so that you can get that current information. With regards to services to folks experiencing homelessness, we still have Berkeley Food and Housing Project, our outreach team, to coordinate with those people. We are available by phone for services, and those services will continue. Internally, we have a planning meeting tomorrow morning for our department heads and our emergency operations team. We will be further defining essential city services. And I can tell you with a quick definition, it's basically what is required to ensure the continuity of local government. So it's paying our bills, and it's setting policies through the council's direction, as mentioned previously, as issues arise throughout this public health crisis. And I will be providing updates based on those meetings. We will be meeting daily, if not more, as the EOC begins to expand and those roles become further defined as the needs arise through public health. I understand there may be questions, so perhaps the rest of my comments can be more informed based on your questions.
Questions from council members?
Oh, I think you've got one here.
I just have two quick ones. You said we do now have a shelter in place as of this afternoon, correct? This is but this is not for homeless people, or is this for homeless people if they have symptoms?
Sure, it's a shelter in place through, through more than Alameda County, but it is for those currently in homes. For those that are homeless, the recommendation is that they find resources and shelter.
Oh, I see, but it is not, for example, in Washington State, there's been a controversy because they've been buying up or somehow getting access to motels and turning them into shelters for people who need to be quarantined. And one homeless person drifted away, and there is the usual brouhaha. But we're not doing that. We have not found a building that we're going to be using for people who need quarantine.
No,
Okay.
not this time.
Second question is, and perhaps I just read this wrong, but I thought the Alameda County public health guidelines said restaurants had to be closed except for takeout services. Did I misread that?
I think that's right.
They're starting to minimize who can come to the restaurant, but the restaurants remain open for takeout services.
Is that all restaurants or just some are doing this takeout thing?
You know, I'm not sure.
You know, that might be something that would be useful on the website, I would think. And although that could be a really quickly changing pattern, but if there was some way for people to know what restaurants you could go to, what the procedure was. I've heard that some places in Berkeley, like Saul's, you can do a curbside pickup. So they don't even want you in the restaurant, which makes a certain amount of sense. But you could call in an order and email in an order. And if we had that information to give out to people, that might be quite helpful.
I think I may understand the confusion. On Sunday, the governor asked that restaurants curtail their business and provide distance.
Yeah.
I think today's order requires restaurants to do takeout only. I'm not positive, but that's what I remember. I've been trying to gather the information myself as much as possible. Today's order is a county order.
And my sense is that they're not required to do takeout, but if they're going to do anything, it would be takeout. And so I was walking down Solano Avenue earlier today. It looked like a number of places might be closed. So it would be useful to, for people to know what's possible.
Our economic development liaison, Claire Griffin, is working directly with the businesses to begin these conversations and make our website more robust to ensure that they have that support going forward.
Oh, I was just going to concur. I have the order up, and it says restaurants and other facilities that prepare and serve food, but only for delivery or carry out. So you're,
It's the county order. And to clarify, the county order is effective midnight tonight.
So, oh, go ahead.
And I also want to add in something from Governor Newsom's press conference on Sunday, that the state is considering renting or buying properties, hotels, to house homeless. But I haven't heard that from the county yet.
I wanted to make a suggestion about the restaurants. And I always have these ideas that are like, we'll just go do this. And then either Mala or Nicole says, well, it's not quite that easy. But I was thinking around, if a restaurant is open for takeout, perhaps we could temporarily modify the parking so it's all 20-minute parking, or 10-minute parking, to make it a little quicker, easier for people to just pull in, grab their food and go, hopefully paying somewhere in there. And I think that might be easy to do.
I think some cities are not using their parking meters exactly for that, not enforcing them exactly for that purpose, so people can come in and out easily.
Yeah, I think if we just say somewhere on the website, we're doing this, and keep the parking turning over there rather than just having people just not think and say, oh, 90 minutes, this is great, I'll go for a walk. And
But then that would require keeping people working, keeping people on the, additional people on the job if it's to be enforced. So it's, there's pluses and minuses.
there's always somebody who tells me I can't do these things. Well, but I even think that just the suggestion might be sufficient.
Yes.
Just a quick follow-up. You see that, where did I see it? That Chipotle next to REI would put a big sign up that says 5-minute parking for, takeout only. Now, it's possible someone would pull in there and park and walk away, but I never noticed that when I would go to REI. Just saying. I didn't do a scientific survey.
Other questions?
Will the Albany waterfront park remain open?
Parks do remain open.
Okay. As far as our fragile people who are housed, but who may be particularly vulnerable to the COVID-19 virus, I do have a concern if our outreach is based on email, website, and text, that folks who are not regularly getting online or don't have smartphones may not be hearing the message. How are we reaching out to that group of people?
We're looking at our options for reaching out to that group. It will likely be through a number of resources, including block captains, and if you know someone that's in need of service, let us know. Call our hotline. We have our e-news that goes out, and so what we can also do through there, granted that those individuals may not be dialed into that, but neighbors are. And we can look at other options as well. Again, this is a topic that we'll be diving into much more deeply as we work through our staff resources and what our next steps are.
We've talked about it before, I think, in terms of earthquake, response to an earthquake, about knowing who may be particularly fragile. And it seems like this would be a good time for us to be able to identify folks who need outreach. So I encourage the staff to do anything you can to try to figure that out.
Yes, and we do have that information on vulnerable populations. I won't say that it is always constantly accurate. There could be someone that's in need of services tomorrow that didn't expect that, and so hence the importance of the hotline for anyone experiencing those issues. But we do have a primary list of those who would need special attention.
And if we have homeless individuals who are, under the circumstances, prepared to accept a motel room or whatever it may be, do we have the resources to provide that?
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
Quick follow-up. When we do National Night Out, there's typically a block coordinator. Do we keep that information? Can we legally use that, reach out to that person and say, have them help coordinate services for needy people on their blocks?
Yeah, and again, that's one of the primary functions of our Emergency Operations Center right now. Granted that this is a public health issue, we are not necessarily the leaders in public health topics, but one thing that we do lead in is providing services to those that need them and customizing those services. So yes, we have the list of those individuals that participate in the block programs and block parties. We also have the block captains, the CERT program. So there are a lot of resources lists that we have that we can start pushing out this information for specific issues that come through. We're seeing certain questions come in more than others, developing more facts on those particular issues so people know where to go to find the right resources.
Are we considering a citywide mailing like we've done on other issues, like a postcard? That people,
We are. The citywide mailings become stale very quickly, and that's something I want to make sure the information that would be provided on something like that could remain over the course of this issue.
at least it would give the people that could look on the website at least a place to go, and hopefully a strong reminder for them to look at their neighbors. And even if their neighbors don't go online, they could work with them. And I think that's, what I've always thought was the critical piece of this was everybody reaching out sort of on both sides of their house.
Right.
And we're trying to do that on our block, and I think on both sides, and Ventura's doing it too. And I think getting that word out is what's really critical.
And what I would also ask is those posted or subscribed to Nextdoor. I think that would be a critical communication channel as well, because it reaches people at a different level than a postcard may.
Mm-hmm.
It's a two-edged sword, though, because there's an awful lot of misinformation that gets circulated on Nextdoor. So I think that I would encourage people to get on Nextdoor, but use it as a way to link to the city and be cautious in accepting what you see on that, on any site where people are posting randomly.
Absolutely, and that's why we developed our webpage immediately upon knowing that coronavirus was going to be a longer-term issue than any of us wanted it to be, because this is where we house our factual information, and this is where we redirect to ensure that people receive that timely factual information.
Yes.
So we had, I don't know if we talked about it, but I'd sent you something earlier about the possibility of putting temporary hand washing stations on Solano and perhaps San Pablo, and also working in some way with the people that are the shower providers in continuing that program. I know the aquatic center's closed temporarily, but there's a whole cadre of people that volunteer that really, I think, could be useful in moving that program temporarily to a city facility. I think we really need to, I think we need to look at that.
I agree with that, and I'd like to suggest that we be looking at the food preparation aspect as well, because some of the same people who are involved with the shower program also prepare food to bring out to homeless encampments. And I think that this is a time when the kind of trust and relationships they've built up with people living in encampments could be particularly useful. And to the extent that we can support the shower program and support the food preparation and delivery program, it would be terrific.
I can say that we will have a porta potty and a hand washing facility outside the community center. That's
Great.
something we have been able to accommodate.
Great.
Wonderful. A couple of comments and questions from me. I just received an email while we were sitting here that the bulb, that East Bay Regional Park District has posted signs that the bulb is closed, actually. So I don't know that it's kind of interesting because I don't know that they have the authority to close the bulb, but at least they've closed some part of the park down there.
Well,
Their parks are all closed.
And the
So
photo was their park.
Oh, okay. So it's not the bulb.
it would not be the bulb.
Although,
Don't you have to get through East Bay Regional Park land to get to the bulb?
No, you
Unless
don't,
you
because
swim?
the Buchanan right-of-way is Albany's, and the Buchanan right-of-way is our access to the bulb.
Okay.
So it may be confusing, but the bulb is open. Okay.
The city portion, city parks are open. yes.
Okay. And we had a business resiliency program at one time. Is that something that we can make use of at all during this time? I know the vice mayor worked on it at one point.
Yeah, it's still a work in progress, and it's timely because it is the same community that we've been working with to plan resiliency. That program is not in a place where it's fully developed. We were really working on the guidebook after a few public meetings, but we definitely have the contacts, and that's who we're working with to help facilitate information sharing.
Okay. And I'll note that I reached out personally to the Solano Avenue Association and the Albany Chamber myself to see how I could help and passed along city information. Have we sent out any e-notifications about this, or have we, has it been, we have? Okay.
As well as e-news.
E-news I remember receiving, I don't, okay. I'm a little behind in my email, that might explain why I haven't seen it. I think that the city manager and I had a phone conversation this afternoon talking about future council meetings. So future council meetings will likely change. There's this interesting tension between the fact that we have shelter-in-place order now in the county, but the governor has only relaxed some of the Brown Act requirements, still asking, at this point in time, as far as I know, still asking that there be a actual physical place where people can come and comment. I'm hoping that perhaps there's some revision on the state level of that, but in the meantime, there's this tension. I have been in touch with the attorney for East Bay Community Energy because they are doing something a little different. They're holding a special meeting where they'll have no physical presence at all. So I'm going to talk to that attorney tonight and see how they manage to do that or what the authority is. But I think we're going to have to be a little creative about council member meetings going forward. That said, I think this city business is essential business and should go forward. So I'm hoping we won't have any roadblocks in the way of future council meetings.
And I can report that we have the teleconference capabilities for the council to call in to our next meeting. So we will work with you individually on how that process unfolds and dial in numbers and so on and so forth. And our direction at this point is that there remains the need to keep a facility open for public comment and observation, and it would be city council chambers.
I also spoke with this city manager about the fact that perhaps we could have an email address for public comment as well, so that people could, in real time, make public comment without actually being physically present.
We actually have an update on that as well.
And we also have stream live council meetings on YouTube. And if people log into their YouTube account, they can comment live. There'll be about a 30-second delay, but I will be monitoring from here.
I think if people are able to do that without having an account, that might be the best thing, because that's where I thought email might be the best, because then there's no barriers to having to sign up for an account, et cetera. But we can work out the details.
You can do it on there's a way on Facebook too. I've participated in meetings on Facebook. In fact, that's how I watched the governor yesterday, and you could comment and you could send little hearts and little thumbs down. And anyway.
As long as we don't, as long as the barrier to doing that is low, as long as people don't have to sign up for accounts.
Well, I think we could do different options.
I guess I'll be the low-tech analog curmudgeon here, but we could just put a microphone out there in the hallway. There's a TV screen there, and people could just watch from out there in the hallway and make comments. We could lock that door and that door.
Well, but they're together. The idea is that they state that they're sheltering in place.
You know the usual people who will show up. But
Anyway,
that is true.
But speaking of council meetings, before we wrap this up totally, I would like to think about how we can discuss, so I guess I want an agenda item for upcoming council meeting on what we could do about evictions and how to prevent them. I also think we need to work with our housing providers. You know, we've worked well with them in the past. I don't want them to feel like we're doing anything doing an end run around them. But our next meeting isn't for another 3 weeks. And I think, you know, things are happening fast, and I don't think we can wait that long. I think we need a special meeting.
I had the same thought, and I was going to ask the council, and if it's appropriate, I think the city attorney says it's okay for us to talk about future agenda items and future meetings during this time. So I was going to solicit from the council what emergency measures you might want to take on a future emergency meeting.
Well, one thing I would like to add, because we're getting emails about this now, there's, generally speaking, 4 levels of government: city, county, state, and federal. And we're getting requests from people to do things which are beyond our pay grade, right? That really, for example, the state is working, the governor's already talking about rules to prevent evictions, but I would be more comfortable if we had kind of a hierarchy of just what authority we have, what authority the county has. For example, county collects property taxes, not us. We cannot suspend property tax collections. I don't think, maybe I'm wrong. And then there's the state, and when it comes to major, influxes or giving cash to people, which is what, for example, Senator Romney of Utah has suggested, $1,000 a person. That kind of stuff. Deficit spending requires federal intervention because states and counties and local governments can't deficit spend. So it would be helpful to make sure what the responsibilities and the authorities are for each of these 4 levels of government, so we have a better idea of what to tell our citizens about what we can and can't do and who they should ask if we can't do it.
So my suggestion is to not hold yourself back in what you might want to do, and to suggest tell us what measures you think you might like to see, and then if they're not appropriate, the staff can tell us, okay, we can't do that. But for example, sometimes the higher level government overrules the local government. So already a number of jurisdictions have put in eviction moratoriums, even though the state might come along and say, okay, now there's a state moratorium, and that will apply to all the cities. But some of the cities got in ahead of time and prevented maybe early evictions. So I wouldn't hold yourself back at this time. We can work through that.
Well, I would support some kind of eviction moratorium, and that even could begin as a letter to the Albany Property Owners Association, just asking them under the circumstances would they do this. But if it was within city power, and I'm not sure it isn't, because we do seem to have some ability over rents and things like that, to request that at least while there's a state of emergency in process, do not evict anybody, for at least 30 days afterwards, some period of time, because I'm sure there are landlords who are almost as much hand to mouth as some of the tenants they might have. But you got to let everybody just sit back and shelter in place and see where this is going.
Okay, so I hear eviction moratorium. I think there's probably a consensus about that. A moratorium on rent increases is something that I'm interested in as well. What else?
Well,
Sure.
how we're helping I'd like to get reports going forward on how we're helping homeless individuals and how we're and the outreach process to the vulnerable population. But I don't think either one needs to be, I don't think we need an ordinance or specific item, just that I'd like to hear us continue to receive reports, fairly detailed, specific reports on those things. There is the issue of helping businesses, and helping people in other ways besides the rent, eviction prevention, and rent increase prevention. I don't know what our powers are, but people are certainly writing in asking us to do a variety of things. So I hope that the staff will look at those and keep us posted.
Absolutely, and I will be clear that we are leaning on our state and the strong action that they've taken and should continue to take to support those local businesses at all levels. As you know, we're a very small city with very limited resources.
Right. The other thing that occurred to me, and I mentioned this when we met the other day, and it sort of expanded in this context, there are a number of people, obviously, in this town who are going to have a difficult time paying rent because they don't have any work or whatever reason. There's going to be another large section of this town that's going to go stir crazy in their homes. And while that's not as great a concern on some level, if the city could do something for that, such as we had to cancel the film festival. But if there was some way in which we could be showing at least some of those films online, stream some of them on the city website, I think that'd be a great thing. And if we could, it'd be one of those things that you could build some kind of city spirit around, that, Monday night we're going to show this film that was, even if it was a 15-minute short, it might help. If there's things that the rec department could think of in terms of, what to do with your kid, how to exercise at home for seniors, just any kind of little programs like that we could pick up and stream. If we have that capacity, we should consider doing it, because there's going to be a lot of people considering domestic violence, on their children or spouses, in about 2 weeks from now, if they haven't been able to go outside. So whatever we can do to,
I agree about if we have capacity beyond the public health aspect of it.
yeah.
There has been some confusion, and various athletic friends of mine have been talking back and forth about this on texting each other, because we're not supposed to travel, but outdoor exercise is okay. So that really needs to be clarified by the counties. My understanding is you can go out and go jogging, for example, but you don't want to be within 6 feet of anybody else. But then there's the travel restrictions, so there seems to be a conflict there.
I looked that up today because I was looking at whether it was going to be okay to put dogs in a car and go to the waterfront park. And my impression is that yes, that is because if you may travel in order to do an exempt activity, and exercise, going hiking, is an exempt activity, so I think we're okay on that.
But not apparently in our regional park.
Not in the regional parks, although that may have more to do with the difficulty of administering a parks program, a very active parks program, under these circumstances. I did want to mention, because there was a discussion about 10 or more people, that was correct on Sunday, but today's order is any number of people who do not live under the same roof, no meetings. And that, of course, creates a conundrum if we want to talk about landlord-tenant, a new landlord-tenant issue of some kind. We're going to probably have quite a few people who want to participate in that discussion. So we've got a lot to think about with that.
So I also heard mention of the perhaps modifying parking if businesses are wanting to do pickup of takeout orders. So perhaps we can work with and I can reach out to the Solano Avenue Association and the Chamber to see what they would want, and maybe we can direct the police to either not enforce or to have a temporary, whatever it would be, to help with that issue.
Will we have parking enforcement for, one's parking violations that are not enforced by the police officer, but by the parking attendant. Will we be enforcing time limits on parking during the emergency?
At this time, we're not. We're looking at essential city services, and some may feel that that is essential. I know that that definition can be interpreted in different ways. That is not a direct public health and safety issue for us, so no, we are not doing that
Yeah.
type of enforcement at this time.
I would suggest we see if it becomes a problem. My sense of this is that people are not going to have difficulty finding parking when all the restaurants, table service is prohibited at all the restaurants.
Another thing I'd like to ask of the council, as we build out our EOC, you'll understand that we will be at capacity very quickly. And there will also be issues that come through the EOC that will need council attention and policy direction. So you will have information coming up to you as well. So give yourself some capacity for requests coming through staff.
Okay. So I would love to have an emergency meeting about a potential eviction moratorium and rent increase moratorium as soon as we can do it. And if there are other items that the council would like to see on such a meeting, please send them to Nicole or myself as soon as possible, because we'd want to put that, it'll take time to put such a meeting together, and we want to act on these things as soon as possible.
I'd also like to ask on that one in particular, given that it affects much more than Albany as a local community, if there's an interest in reaching out to someone above us to see if we can do this either at a regional level or higher. The issue is clearly nationwide and further.
It may be that in the time it takes for us to put this together, the state will have already passed an eviction ordinance and rent increase ordinance, who knows, but.
And that happened with the just cause ordinance. You know, we did put in quite a lot of work on the issue of just cause. It was extremely controversial, and ultimately, before we could take up the issue, the state took action. So it might not be a bad idea to speak with Nancy Skinner's office and Buffy Wicks's office and see if we can anticipate something on that issue coming down the pike at the state level, which would
Absolutely.
desirable.
I also think that it might not be too much staff time in order to consider some of these items, since other jurisdictions have already passed them, such as I think Oakland either has passed an eviction moratorium or is about to, and San Jose, I believe, already has. So we may be able to just copy and paste from these other jurisdictions. But I think both things are important. That's good advice as well.
I have heard that the legislature is considering suspending activities for about 3 weeks. And I also suspect under the governor's emergency authority, he might have the individual authority to do these kind of things. So it would also be helpful to just check with the governor's office. Mm-hmm. Maybe the only person in town.
Are there any further questions or comments from the council?
Since we don't know for sure if we're going to have a meeting, but since there are no meetings scheduled, the calendar's pretty open, do we want to pencil something in, or do you want to just wait? Okay.
Yeah, I want to gather more information. I hear the questions that the council's asking, and I'd like to pace those out with what we can do to get that agenda as informed as possible.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, the meeting tonight was shortened due to current situation, obviously. So there are no other items on the agenda, and I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.